or Ireland. He said pharmaceuticals were going to bring them all back. There's a lot of big pharma, American big pharma in Ireland, and of course, big tech, Apple, Google. Could there be potentially a tax cut, a corporation tax cut in America to match Ireland? That could spell disaster for the Emerald Isle. He then went on to say 100% tariffs to US companies exiting the USA, they would never have left. So he appears to be saying there could be tariffs on even American companies. If they chose to leave, they would regret it, he said. They would never come back. They would never leave if they were facing those kind of tariffs on their exit. He talked about Elon Musk. And he said, listen, I love Elon, but I don't need him for anything. He said the car he bought was full price, and now his team, his cabinet team, drive it around the compound. He said, I don't even drive the car. But still, very complimentary about Elon Musk. He then said, we're making $2 billion a day in the USA. He then said, actually, it's more like $3.5 billion a day. Some difference there. He went on to talk about borders, of course, a favourite topic. And he said, we're taking all of the bad ones from Europe, from Africa, from the Middle East. So in typical form, let's get some reaction now from my esteemed guest. I'm joined by Sir John Redwood in the studio. Sir John, you're smiling away there at Donald Trump because Donald Trump is being Donald Trump. What do you make of the tariffs thus far and the impact they've had on the global economy?
Well, they've had a big shock effect on the economy, and we've seen confidence ebbing away and the market's not liking it. I think the president has got to make up his mind what he's trying to do. There seems to be two different aims here. I mean, he could have massively expensive tariffs which stay in place, damage trade, and would need to be offset by very big tax cuts. And sometimes he flirts with that idea. I think that would be a bad idea. Or there's the idea that their aggressive tariffs wake people up in other countries. They have to make a much better offer, and then you do a deal. And that's what we thought this man was really good at. And so I say to him, do some deals, Donald. That's what we want. That's what people expected. By all means, be a bit tough and say to people, you've had it too easy for too long, but sit down, do some deals, and then the markets would relax. Because if they saw him actually reaching some agreements, they would know there was light at the end of the tunnel.
And Sir John, what about the notion, something you've been very outspoken of, very fond of historically, low tax regimes? You were very vocal on that during Brexit. Why didn't the United Kingdom replicate Ireland to be a big draw to get corporations back to the UK? Do you think there seems to be some inkling there that Donald Trump might offer some kind of corporation tax cut? The carrot following the stick, if that happens, particularly, Sir John, for Ireland, it could be calamitous.
Well, it could be, and he's got two options, hasn't he? He can either carry on with saying, you're going to face a tariff if you insist on these very low taxes because they're exporting things, or he could do what you say. Why doesn't he match or improve on the tax offer? And yes, I think the business would drain away very quickly. I wanted us to set our corporation tax rate at the same level as the Republic of Ireland. So I think then we'd have been the more attractive place for them to come. Who wouldn't have wanted to come to London if you could match the tax offer of Dublin? I don't know why governments didn't do it. I mean, the Osborne chancellorship did get the corporation tax rate down, and he did prove that you collect more revenue when you cut the rate. You don't collect less revenue. If we'd done it on a bigger scale, a lot of that investment which crowded into Ireland could have been spread out more fairly into Britain, and we'd have had a much stronger tax base. So I think it's a big missed opportunity.
Joining me now, live from the House of Lords, hoving interview like a vision, Lord Maurice Glassman. It's a pleasure to have your company.
Very good to see you and you, John.
And thank you very much for joining us. We're just catching up there. Donald Trump giving a press conference from a cabinet meeting. 90,000 factories gone. He said you've spoken passionately in the past, Lord Glassman, about deindustrialisation. He was talking about 6 million jobs have been lost in America. We're going to bring them all back, particularly, you mentioned pharmaceuticals, bring them all back to America. That could be big news for Ireland. If Donald Trump starts offering incentives or to get those corporations to come back to America, to manufacture, to build in America, a bit more of the carrot and less of the stick, Lord Maurice Glassman, that could have a huge impact.
I think Ireland's reached the end of its fantasy world. I really do. It's been living in some kind of dream world where it's got great relationship with us. I mean, there's total free movement between us and Ireland, and they weren't pleasant over Brexit. I mean, they were actually unfriendly there. And then they've got this great relationship with the United States where everything's fine. And then, of course, they're enjoying all the tax benefits of being a tax haven within the EU. And now this is all coming to an end. So I really think there's very, very hard times. They've got the whole immigration issue in Ireland, which hasn't yet expressed itself politically. Hugely unbalanced economy, very strong dependence on American corporations as a tax haven to keep the economy going. But it's not our problem, you know.
Interestingly, he also spoke about borders there, and yesterday he was doubling down on that threat to deport immediately 1 million immigrants who came over the border during the Biden years. He said, you need to leave the country immediately. And he said there, we want the best people to come and do the jobs, something that Elon Musk had said initially, but we're taking all the bad immigrants from Europe, from Africa. Do you think the UK could learn something from Donald Trump's stance on immigration? Do you think Sir Keir Starmer could?
I think Sir Keir Starmer and the government have already substantially shifted their position on this. I think we're seeing it now. And you know, what we're seeing playing out in the States, Martin, is this real battle between, you could call it the Bannon-Vance wing of MAGA Square and the Elon Musk transhumanist, you know, prosthetics, live till 400, condos on, you know, just a big, enormous, nasty capitalist. And what Bannon-Vance are interested is in workers, in reindustrialization, in bringing... This is the first time, John, for 50 years it hasn't been a consumer-led policy, but a producer-led policy. Yeah. And they want to create incentives for American capital to invest in America. All the incentives have been China, 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 Indonesia, Mexico, China, China, China. And they've realized that basically American capital has underwritten the dominance of the Chinese Communist Party. John, this is the truth of Thatcherism in the end, that our inherited capital empowered the Communist Party of China. This era of globalization is over. What we're seeing now is the birth pangs of the new.
And I wonder, Sir John, if that's a key point. OK, there's been some real pain, like $10 trillion wiped off the global markets. But is this deep reset? Let's face it, China has been it's been no friend to Britain. It's been no friend to America in terms of offshoring our manufacturing. We don't make anything anymore. And a lot of that is because we exported to cheap labour, slave labour, carbon footprints. We hide our dirty secrets in China. China hasn't worked for Britain. It hasn't worked for the United States of America. Could this be some kind of reset?
Well, that's what they're trying. But as I said earlier, I think there's still a big muddle in America over whether they're going to go full throttle in the way you're describing and be poorer but have more industry onshore, or whether there's going to be some kind of compromise where they're still partly on the free trade agenda. Now, I don't agree that Thatcher was deindustrialising. I remember helping her to get a lot more investment into the car industry, which was in very poor shape in the 1970s. And we got it back up to being an industry capable of making 2 million cars a year, and it's now down to 800,000. So it's collapsed since. I think that's quite wrong, and I think you do need to put in industrial and tax policies that rebuild the industry.
Yeah, the interesting part of our conversation, which we have to have, is what was the direction of the Big Bang? How did that affect UK capital? And what happened with UK capital is when you don't have any free or democratic trade unions, when you've got no constraint as regards working conditions, then the rate of return is higher and faster. China, the communism obviously offered the maximum exploitation of working people. That's the paradox of it all. Yeah. And that went into alliance with capital who wanted the returns. Yes. So the direction of travel was a huge industrialization, unseen since 19th century America.
But this is 2000 onwards, because the really big thing that changed was when China entered the World Trade Organization in 2000. Okay, and up till that point, they didn't trade very much. And it's been 25 years of China sweeping the world, hoovering up all of the industrial activities and going for very cheap energy based mainly on coal. And we've been doing the opposite. We've gone for very dear energy and have crippled what industry we got left.
But the key thing that we have to discuss is that the future was defined in terms of financial services, fundamentally, and that's completely changed. So, Martin, this is really big, and people who think that this is a negotiating tactic by Trump no, this is a direction of travel that he's been...
No, I agree with that. He wants to go in this direction, and it's also connected with wanting to have serious military power. Because how can you defend your country or undertake overseas activities if you can't make steel and weapons?
Yeah, Martin, we've got to talk about that for our country too.
This will be a whole lengthy debate. Gentlemen, fascinating stuff on Donald Trump. Let's move on now back to domestic politics, because white British hopefuls have been banned from applying to join one of the UK's biggest police forces in a controversial push, of course, to boost diversity. West Yorkshire Police has blocked white candidates from submitting applications for its constable entry programme, while so-called underrepresented groups get first dibs. Now, ex-coppers claim the system hides applications from white Brits altogether during this early window. And this row comes as the Prime Minister today warned forces they must put more bobbies on the beat during peak times or face losing vital government help. Well, joining me now is Nusrit Mehtab, a former top Metropolitan Police officer. Welcome to the show, Nusrit. Pleasure to have your company. In fact, you were the most senior Asian woman officer in the entire police force in your time, and you experienced, you say, extreme racism and prejudice against you. You tried to sue the force for £500,000. When you hear about what's happening in West Yorkshire Police, you also think that that's racism. Banning white people from jobs seems pretty prejudicial.
Right, but there's two things here that West Yorkshire have been, and at this moment, there is no evidence that they haven't acted within the law. It's positive action, which they're allowed to do under the Equalities Act 2010, where they're allowed to do targeting advertising to support those groups that have been disadvantaged or underrepresented. And what they're doing is asking them to apply for a number of reasons. People from those communities may not apply due to systemic racism, or they may feel the job isn't for them. We're focusing very much on that, but positive action has been around for decades.
There's a Freudian slip there, Nusrit, because you said positive discrimination and positive action in the same breath. And isn't this just rebadging straightforward discrimination? Who cares what skin colour officers are? Who cares what sexuality they are? We want the best people for the job, and West Yorkshire Police are quite clearly cutting out white candidates. There's a gold, silver and bronze tier. White people aren't even on the podium.
Right, let me just make one thing clear. You're absolutely right. It's positive action and positive discrimination. Positive discrimination is illegal. There's nothing to suggest that there is that. Listen, I'm happy for anybody.
Tomatoes.
No, can I finish? I'm happy if an officer knocks on my door and I actually get a police officer. That's the first hurdle. The challenges here are that certain communities are not coming forward because of systemic discrimination.
Is it because of that, or is it because of choice? I mean, perhaps they just don't want to be coppers.
Well, and they want to give them the opportunity to try, because it might be that they don't even feel that they can join the police service, and that's why there's a problem. Positive action has been around for decades. There's positive action in every single force. If the women are not represented in firearms, they will make everything possible for women to join there, and they'll do target advertising. The Met Police does it all the time. Promotion, they'll be asking people to come, to join the process for promotion. Mounted branch. If a certain group isn't represented, whether it's females, whether it's minorities, policing will do everything to make that representation. Now, representation is important, Martin, because we need different experiences, different perspectives, diversity of thought. It's not just about...
But we don't get diversity of thought if we make it down to only diversity of immutable characteristics, such as skin colour, ethnicity and sexuality. Here's a question for you, Nusrit. If diversity and inclusion... Hang on a sec. If diversity and inclusion is... Hang on, please. If diversity and inclusion has been so successful over all the years we've had it, why are we only answering 4 out of 10 burglaries? Why 8 out of 10 shoplifters walking away? Why are the police wasting so much time policing tweets and not policing streets?
Right, well, there's a couple of questions in there. Let me answer the first one. I totally agree with you that policing has bigger issues to deal with than diversity, equality and inclusion. But that's what we're discussing today. They need to deal with other things. And we know that there's been a report from His Majesty's Inspectorate which says that police don't investigate crime because of inexperience, don't have the investigative mindset, poor training, poor supervision. That's another debate. We're here discussing what West Yorkshire are doing. Now, I don't, you're obviously the whistleblower is saying that they're grading people according to gold, silver, and bronze. And if that is the
people
case,
are being screened out. How can you agree with that as somebody who's fought against racism? Is it impossible to be racist against white people?
No, let me make this quite clear. I don't agree with that. I've just said to you that if that's the case, then that needs to be investigated because there's something wrong in how they're doing that process. And is that an individual decided that they're going to, create this new system, or is that
it happens in police forces all across the land? I hear it all the time.
Right. But secondly, where is your evidence to say that these white officers have been prejudiced and discriminated? Racism becomes at the point that they have been prejudiced and discriminated. Now, from my understanding...
That's the policy. That's literally the policy. To screen out white people. It's here in black and white. Pun intended.
Positive action isn't illegal. Positive discrimination is. And at the point of selection, if you're discriminating based on...
What's the difference? Seriously, what's the difference between positive action and positive discrimination if it has the same output, less white people?
Right. Well, does it have less white people? Because if these people that they've asked to do their targeting advertising on come through the door, but when we get to selection, actually, people are selected on merit and there is no discrimination. Look, let me tell you something.
That would be great, because I think that's all that most people care about.
Yeah, but this isn't working for West Yorkshire because clearly they're investing millions of pounds.
They've got a terrible crime-solving rate. They're one of the worst in Britain. They spend the most money on diversity, equality and inclusion in the entire country. They are the top of the woke league table, and their crime-solving rate is one of the worst. I put it to you, perhaps the two things are connected. Nusrat Mehtab, I'm being told we have to move on.
By any stretch of the imagination. No, they're not. Let me make it clear to you that what's happening is that if there's the evidence, if you show me evidence that at the point of selection, they're recruiting two people who are equally qualified and they're going for the person that's a minority above the candidate, it has to be done on merit. Now, I'm not a fan of positive discrimination at all. But what I would say...
Well, I think we've ascertained. I'm being told, Nazareth, I'm sorry, I'm being told we have to move on. I don't think we really got to the bottom there. Is there any difference between positive action, positive discrimination? Perhaps it's mere semantics. I'm afraid we have to move on because a spokesman for West Yorkshire Police told us this. The most recent census found that 23% of people in the West Yorkshire identified as being from an ethnic minority background. But our current police officer representation from ethnic minority backgrounds is around 9%. To address this underrepresentation, we use positive action under the Equality Act 2010. Our use of this was recently reviewed and no issues were identified. No interviews are held until the window is officially opened to all of our candidates. Now, thank you very much, Nusrat. Now, coming up next, the terror group Hamas has launched a legal bid to be removed from the UK's list of proscribed terrorist organisations with the help from, you can guess it, the ECHR. Is this even more reason to withdraw us from this ridiculous foreign court? That's next.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Do you think that this Meghan Markle lifestyle range is really going to fly off the shelves? Do people want her very expensive look?
OK, so I'm going to caveat my answer with the fact that I do think Meghan has really, really good style. I don't think anybody is debating that. She always looks incredible. She wears amazing clothes. She knows how to put herself together. Will that translate into sales? Well, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. And by the way, I think you have an amazing future in TV sales beckoning for you.
It's frankly probably my only future, actually, Amber. I think it's probably my only future, but carry on.
I mean, the question is, they're very, very expensive clothes, aren't they? I mean, I had a little trawl through as well, you know, just in case I wanted to buy something. I think the cheapest thing I could find was a pair of £120 J. Crew white linen trousers. It's not just the fact that this stuff is really expensive, but who is dressing head to toe in white every day? The clothes that she's chosen as well are just not the clothes that mere mortals wear. I mean, look, there she is in the kitchen, she's cooking up a storm. Who's wearing all white?
Who is this actually aimed at? It's not mums in a rush, is it? It's not some poor single mum in Basingstoke who's got 2 screaming kids, and you know that all of us, you know, look at the stuff that she's churning out there. And by the way, what is not her home and with no children in sight. I mean, who is this clothing range for?
I have absolutely no idea. It's not me. It's not anyone I know. It's fascinating that I mean, if you're going to launch any brand, the first thing you do is ask, who's my customer? Who's my audience? They clearly haven't got a clue. Nobody needs to know how to make their own tea bags. Nobody.
No, and also, stop sprinkling flowers on stuff. Stop it. No one does that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
There are 3 things.
Okay, welcome back to GBN tonight with me, Martin Daubin. The debate's lively, even in the breaks. Now, moving on, Hamas is using the European Convention of Human Rights, of course it is, to try and overturn its UK terror ban, claiming it's a liberation and resistance movement and not a terrorist threat to Britain. If you believe that, I've got a Santa Claus to show you. Now, it's British lawyers, yes, British lawyers, who are arguing that prescribing Hamas as a terrorist organisation breaches their free speech under the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, is this even more of a reason to withdraw Britain from the ECHR? Well, join me now is the Middle East and defence expert, Andrew Fox. Andrew, always a pleasure to have you on the show. What does it make you feel to equate the reality of one of the most brutal terrorist organisations on the planet, let's not forget October the 7th, suddenly being portrayed as the victim here in British courts by British lawyers with the ECHR as their leverage point? Have we completely lost the plot?
It's yet another example, Martin, of the way that international law and domestic law is being abused. It's part of a very deliberate campaign of what we call lawfare, where they are exploiting the systems that we've had in place since the Second World War, that were there designed to protect our rights and our way of life. And they've seen that now as a weak point. And repeatedly what they're doing is using these courts to try and get their position across and exploit those loopholes to try and justify horrors like Hamas.
And Andrew Fox, as well as being a Middle East expert, of course, you've served extensively in the British Armed Forces across the Middle East. No doubt you've experienced Hamas firsthand. Do they fit this template of a cuddly, oppressed group?
I would suggest very much the opposite. I mean, we cannot underestimate how terrible 7th of October was. And I think in many ways the world forgot about it on 8th of October. Because already, as Israel began its response, even as people were still fighting and dying on the ground in Israel, we were already hearing discussion about genocide in Gaza. It was a very well-organised and well-orchestrated and planned campaign. But, you know, I've seen more evidence of 7th of October than many people, many Israelis. You know, I've been to Israel and I've been shown some of the footage. And above that, I've seen some of the evidence of sexual assault. And I can tell you this, Martin, that nothing I saw in Afghanistan comes even close to what I saw in Israel in the aftermath of 7th of October. It was that horrific. The mutilation, the murder, the sexual assault. It's beyond my ability to describe it to you. And it's so bad. The hair on my arms is standing up just telling you about it.
Andrew Fox, and that begs the question, why are British lawyers siding with these people? Why are British lawyers utilising ECHR rules? It's bad enough if it's about chicken nuggets and Albanians. It's bad enough if it's about people marrying people who don't exist or pretending to be a member of a terrorist organisation in Nigeria to avoid deportation. This is implicitly and explicitly being used to back terrorists.
Well, it's a part of a very, very clear campaign to delegitimise the state of Israel. We know there are significant demographics in the UK who don't believe half of what happened on 7th of October and who have sympathies with Hamas. And indeed, on the marches in London, we've seen pro-Hamas statements and pro-Hamas banners repeatedly. This is the way Hamas operate. They're not just a terror group in a small part of the Middle East. They have an extensive European network of backers, of finance, and of legal representation. And this is one of the ways they take their battle to the world and try and legitimize their campaign of hatred against Jews and against the West in general.
Andrew Fox, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And as ever, I'll say to you, thank you for your service in the British military. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on GB News. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the studio. My panel really want to get stuck into this one. That's the former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood and the Labour peer, Lord Maurice Glassman. I'll come to you first, Maurice, if I could. You were vociferously nodding along there. The notion that the ECHR is being used to protect terrorists must be repellent to you.
It's disgusting, and it goes to a very profound issue which I raised recently, is what they want, the lawyers, the human rights lawyers, is not the rule of law. They want the rule of lawyers. Right? They are power-hungry, greedy people who wish to lay down the law, and this ECHR has to be, we have to withdraw from it, but also the Human Rights Act that was enshrined within our law, which was sneaked in. Now, the ECHR, it's just important to say, in 1946, it had no status in British law. That was sneaked in by Roy Jenkins in '66, where judges should pay attention or be mindful of it. Since then, it's been systematically why. You ask why do British lawyers? Because they make a lot of money doing it. That's the greedy side. And the other side is the anti-democratic aspect of human rights law, that they wish to subordinate the will of the people to these judgments in Strasbourg, which are totally alien. We have the greatest record of liberty in the world through our common law, and we have to restore the common law to the primacy in the judicial system and absolutely get rid of both the ECHR and the Human Rights Act, which are continuously abused by greedy lawyers.
Sir John Redwood, I'll bring you in at this point. We heard a lot of fairly fiery rhetoric during the Brexit referendum about the enemy of the people, that kind of stuff. But when you look at lawyers siding with terrorists, you've got to ask yourself some serious questions about the motives here.
Well, this is going to shock a lot of people, and I trust it will be dealt with properly by the Home Secretary. I trust she won't give in to it.
Oh, she won't.
And if it requires any British legislation, then she has a big majority. There'd be no excuse. But I don't think it will require that. But I think I agree entirely with what we just heard, that this is completely unacceptable, that it's got to be rolled back, and it will require the assertion of a sovereign parliament in the United Kingdom to come up with a fairer and better law. Because, yes, I want us to have the right to free speech and all the civil rights and all the rest of it. But through this system, it's just abuse after abuse.
I want to quickly come to you, Lord Glassman, if I could, because I had a barrister on the show. It is Stephen Barrett. He said that he believes Yvette Cooper is a decent human being who respects British law. This won't have any legal toehold. It will be knocked into the long grass, which begs the point, why on earth they do it in the first place?
Oh, no, this is just the continuing process of human rights legislation as law. So, yeah, I've got no doubt that Yvette Cooper will just completely dismiss this. But I'm saying to John that we need to restore the ancient liberties. We had 4 fundamental liberties. We all knew where we were. We had freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, freedom of association and freedom of expression. We all knew where we were. These weren't rights, they were our ancient liberties. That needs to be restored. There's no new... What's needed is the repeal of the human rights legislation, not necessarily any new laws.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Excellent debate. Thank you very, very much. Now, coming up, you would not believe this, only five small boat pilots have been convicted this year, despite 6,000 migrants claiming asylum in Britain. How's your smashing the gangs plan going, Mr Prime Minister? That's next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
And welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dalby. Now, only 5 people have been convicted of piloting migrant boats across the Channel this year. That's despite over 6,000 making the dangerous journey. Now, we know that at least 119 dinghies have landed on UK shores from France in just the last 3 months alone, as warmer weather and calm seas fuel a fresh surge, some are calling the Storm Order. Now, every boat needs someone to steer and run the engine, but just 5 got nicked. 5 have faced court since January, the Home Office admits. So how is smashing the gangs going, Sir Keir Starmer? I would say absolutely terribly. Let's take it to my panel now. I'm joined by my panel, of course, Sir Maurice Glassman and Lord Maurice Glassman, beg your pardon, and Sir John Rebel. Get my lords and my sirs mixed up. I'm only human. Sir John, let's start with you. 5 people. Bear in mind, in the same time, 1 person every 15 seconds gets nicked for an ULEZ ticket by Sadiq Khan in London. We're completely losing the plot. How on earth can the conviction rate be so low?
I can't believe it, because quite often these boats are intercepted and the people are taken off safely by Border Force or by the lifeboat service. They would see who was steering and controlling the engine of the boat, so they should immediately say to the police on arrival, this is the person you need to arrest because they've clearly been endangering lives at sea and running a people smuggling racket, and it's just completely unacceptable.
But it's got to the point, has it not, Lord Maurice Glassman, where many people think that this is not a law enforcement service. As you can see, Border Force, it's a rescue service, it's a taxi service.
You know, it's completely out of order. I mean, I've long argued we have to put the Royal Navy into the English Channel. Sometimes I amuse myself.
But they don't want to do it.
They don't want to do it, but they might have to do it, and that's because we've got to protect our
But they don't want
borders.
to do it because the rules imposed would make the task impossible. You've got to look again at how this is organised, and you've got to say to Border Force, one of your prime duties is to arrest the ringleaders and the drivers of the boats, because we need to break this. I mean, that is the Home Secretary's policy. So why isn't she instructing them to do that?
Conservatives didn't do that.
No, well, then they were wrong. But we had a new policy. They had a policy of deterrence by Rwanda, which was scrapped. The new policy is to crack down on the gangs. Well, you can see a member of the gang in each of the boats because they're driving it. They probably collected the fares. They are breaking all sorts of laws, from tax laws to seriously endangering people's lives. So why aren't we cracking down on that?
And does it not just send out the message to the public? I mean, how difficult could it be? So I go, oh, there's the guy who's got his hand on the outboard motor. He's clearly the pilot. He should be immediately nicked. Except the trouble is, the same lawyers, perhaps, who think Hamas should be protected by the ECHR, think these geezers should be protected and given a 4-star hotel. We've completely lost the plot.
Yeah, I mean, these two things are completely connected, aren't they, John? I mean, the human rights law, the lack of it. All I can tell you is, for sure, is that I have witnessed absolute resolution from the government, as was the case, and a complete disconnect between the resolution of the government and the enforcement on the sea. That's what we've got to look at. That's why I think we've got to think much more drastically about the remedy.
So what needs to be done? I mean, we're hearing tough talk from Sir Keir Starmer about smashing the gangs, but another gang will turn up. And how is smashing the gangs going if only 5 fellas have been nicked?
And the thing I don't understand is France. I mean, the total lack of control they've got over their own border.
You need to dodge the Sir Keir Starmer question there. Sir Keir Starmer's the Prime Minister. It should be his... We can blame the French all we like. We do that often on this channel, trust me. But the buck starts with the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and
and we are paying the French millions, so we ought to be supervising what we're getting for the money. But
John, let's retake Calais. I think let's control the border. I mean, so what... Okay,
but why don't we do some mystery shopping as well? Because these things are all apparently advertised on the internet for people to pay their sums of money in order to go on these boat trips. Why can't our officials pretend to be somebody who wants to do this and then turn up with the money and arrest them instead?
But Martin, I'm not avoiding your question at all. I mean, my understanding is that the Prime Minister is now, if he wasn't before, and John understands how it goes in government, he's now utterly aware that this is out of control, but everything that he's trying to enforce,
So to
as
use
you
that,
can see...
To use that phrase, prized by Brexiteers, how do we take back control of this situation?
Well,
Because whatever we're doing so far, it ain't working.
Yeah, so arrest the captains, that's just one side, but just focusing on the gangs is not enough. There has to be far greater security on the border and control of the sea. And how we do that, I think, has to be a mixture of naval. Drones are an extremely effective way. You now have the drone technology to target every boat and instruct them to turn back. These are all options that we now have to enforce because clearly, I mean, there's more people being arrested for doing a stupid tweet on WhatsApp than there are for riding the boats across the Channel.
Well, that's a scandal, but also for our money to France, we should expect them to stop the boats taking off. It's dangerous as soon as they put to sea.
Let's clarify that, John. So what I'm saying here is there has to be far greater hostility, if you like, in our relationship with France over this.
Yeah, we've got to really demand value for money. I mean, I bet if I set up an illegal boat trip service on on the French coast, I'd immediately be arrested and told I had to have a licence. So why don't they do that to these people who are making a fortune out of people trafficking?
This is now a really serious issue in our relationship with France, and I don't see any alternative to escalating that.
But is there any appetite, on a serious point? You know, there's an ongoing bromance between Keir Starmer and Macron. Is there seriously any appetite for the kind of policy you talk about here? Obviously, we're very well received by GB News viewers, but when push comes to shove, there'll be more people in jail for tweets than there are in jail for human smuggling in Britain.
And this is absolutely out of order and has got to change. But this is the point. What happened to your last government was that they broke their promise to the British people precisely on take back control and were duly punished. My government, they know that that's their fate unless they act.
Yeah,
it's not
I hope
really.
They've learnt it because it was very clear.
It was very, very clear. Do you see what I mean, Martin? This is not about it. It's that they know that the people of our country are disgusted by this, and unless they act, we will be rightly punished.
Well, there we go. I think that's the fate that the Conservative Party met to John Redwood, and perhaps that's the same fate the Labour Party will meet.
I was saying, I'm answering your question, is there any appetite? You bet there's an appetite for that reason.
Let's see if that happens. Lord Glassman, Sir John Redwood, thank you very, very much. Now, a spokesman from the Home Office told GB News this. Since January the 1st, 2025, CFI Immigration Enforcement have convicted 17 individuals for piloting a small boat, including 5 who committed the offence in 2025. In 2024, 64 individuals were convicted. Now, bear in mind, there's one person in every 15 seconds nicked for an ULEZ ticket. That puts things into perspective. Thanks to my panel. Coming up next, the iconic Red Arrow jets are reportedly set to be replaced with Russian-designed jets instead, in a move that has, of course, triggered massive backlash from all angles. Next, I'll be joined by the CEO of the British company tipped to replace the current plane model of the Red Arrows. Get ready for takeoff. That's in a moment.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Olivier is making its way across Portugal and Spain, bringing some heavy rain and strong winds, continuing as we go into Friday. Some places seeing around a month's worth of rain in just a day or so. A little bit dry as we go further east. In fact, across Italy, Friday's looking largely fine with some decent sunshine. Also mostly dry for Greece, but here temperatures are well below average. In some places, they're around 10 degrees below. A mixed picture as we go through the weekend and into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It could be quite a foggy start for some of us tomorrow, particularly across the south, but this should clear quite readily through the morning, leaving another fine day, lots of warm sunshine on offer, and it's all thanks to this area of high pressure. At times this has swung some lower cloud across eastern areas, but we're seeing a change in our wind direction to a more northwesterly feed, so that means many areas are going to see a bright end to the week. As we head into this evening, some lingering cloud across East Anglian coasts of Kent may just drift its way southwards, bringing some fog across southern coasts in particular. Also plenty of cloud moving into northern parts of Scotland. That might be thick enough to produce some drizzle across parts of Shetland. But for many, it's going to be a dry night, feeling fairly chilly, not quite as cold as recent nights. And it's likely we'll see some mist and fog patches across rural areas across the country as well. So to start the day tomorrow across Scotland, a fair amount of cloud, particularly across northern areas. Elsewhere across Scotland, higher base cloud, so it might just make the sunshine as it comes up turn a little bit hazy. Fairly clear across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Similar elsewhere across Wales, central and southern parts too. Perhaps a little bit chilly and, like I said, some mist and fog to start, particularly across southern counties. But it's clearing quite readily through the course of the morning, and that should leave a fine day on offer. Wall-to-wall sunshine for many of us and feeling very warm in that sunshine too. The only exception is the very far north of Scotland. More cloud here, some drizzly outbreaks, particularly across Shetland and possibly Orkney later, and a bit breezier here too. But elsewhere, lighter winds, warm sunshine, highs likely reaching around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm afraid a change is on its way over the weekend. There will still be plenty of dry weather, some sunnier outbreaks, but it's likely we'll start to see more clouds start to push in from the southwest, and there's a chance we could see some showery outbreaks too. And similar across the very far northwest of the country, more cloud here and some showers. And on Sunday, these showers likely more widespread, and it's going to be feeling significantly cooler too. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the iconic RAF Red Arrows jets are reportedly in danger of being replaced by Russian planes made by Putin in a move slammed as outrageous and other things that we can't even say on television. Now, the move stems from the closure of BAE Hawks factory in East Yorkshire in 2020, and in the 5 years since the UK authorities have failed to provide the RAF with an alternative manufacturer, leaving the Air Force no choice, apparently, but to turn to Russian-designed planes. Now, leaving an even more bitter aftertaste, the Red Arrow's mission of promoting British industry and reinforcing the reputation of the UK seems to be lying in tatters. Now, the Conservatives, military figures and even the Prime Minister have rejected this decision, but it leaves the question of who will the RAF turn to continue the beloved, magnificent Red Arrows tradition. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by Tristan Crawford, the CEO of Veralis, a British jet company hopefully tipped to replace the old Red Arrows model. Tristan, a delight to have your company. This story has really got GB News viewers revved up. They cannot believe that the sacred Red Arrows could ever be made anywhere else apart from Great Britain.
Absolutely. Well, I'm delighted to be here. I think, firstly, I have to say that, generically speaking, we support the government's move to invest and support UK defence companies, UK small to medium-sized enterprises. It's fantastic news. And even the Secretary of State committed to secure the future of the Red Arrows. So well done. I mean, fantastic news. However, there's an existential problem here in the sense that the fleet of aircraft that the Red Arrows use today, the wonderful Hawk T1, has only got a few more years left to live. And it's unthinkable that, given the Red Arrows represent British equipment, British personnel around the world, promoting our interests around the world, that anything other than a British-designed and British-built aircraft would replace that Hawk. And we've got about 4 or 5 years left to run. Any aerospace firm doing this kind of work has got to do a lot of development and testing, so we're running out of time. And what we need now is some strong direction and leadership on this issue from the UK to make sure that aircraft is going to be a British aircraft in the future.
And how confident are you that's going to happen? I mean, there were even South Korean jets were in the running for this, Russian jets in the running for this, Italian jets in the running for this. Is the problem, though, is we don't make anything anymore? We seem to have squandered our own aerospace industry. We're shutting down steel plants. But surely this is a lifeline. Veralis must be thrown.
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? I think the UK has led this area for the last 50 years. All of our display teams have flown British aircraft for 50 years. And to be fair, this area has been underinvested in for a while. And our colleagues around the world have developed new jet trainers to train their pilots and to display their prominence on the world stage. and we're getting left behind. Now, when you turn to the UK industrial base, we really have everything here. So aerostructures, systems, flight control systems, avionics, undercarriage, engines, we do everything here in the UK today. So it would be an absolute travesty if we didn't exploit that supply chain to generate a new British aircraft. And it's a little bit like comparing, if you compare this to F1, for example, our company is drawing the best program managers and engineers from existing British aerospace companies to do this. And we're like the new F1 team in UK aerospace. And this is a very conventional aircraft. It's pretty straightforward to develop. It's not a high-end combat jet. So this is a very, very easy product for the UK to develop, absolutely.
And emotionally, totemically, symbolically, having a Russian Red Arrow would seem like a final white flag, a surrender.
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine, obviously, if we have any overseas aircraft representing the best of British, it would really send, I think, only one message to our partners and our allies and our adversaries around the world, whether we had sovereign whole aircraft capability in truth. And I think you know what conclusion they would draw.
That we couldn't make anything, we couldn't get anything off the ground. We have the smallest army since the Napoleonic eras. We're kind of giving up. How confident are you, Tristan Crawford, of getting a result?
I'm quietly very confident. Clearly, there's a lot of competition out there, but we're now butting up now against this real question about British supremacy in defence aviation. And what better argument can you make for that with your own display team, which flies British jets? The solution is very easy to develop. We can do it in time. We're in the right place at the right time with British industry to deliver this aircraft. So let's do it.
Okay, confident pitch. If I were on the Dragons, then I'd probably say, Tristan Crawford, you're hired, the CEO of Aralis. Thank you very, very much for joining us in the studio tonight. Now, of course, State of the Nation is up next. Tonight, Tom Harwood is in the big seat. Tom, what's on your menu?
Well, top of the list, it's got to be grooming gangs, Martin. We've had a hokey cokey from this government. One day they're holding inquiries. Is it 5? Is it 4? Is it 1, as we thought on Tuesday? Well, now they're saying it could be more than 5. But is this only after pressure from the media and particularly some backbench MPs worried about their seats? Is the truth that the government will only talk about this issue when their feet are held to the fire? We're going to be talking to Dan Hodges, the fearless Mail on Sunday columnist, about that issue. But it's not just grooming gangs, because we'll also have an economist on the programme tonight. An economist cited by Donald Trump's White House back on Monday as one of the main influences behind his tariff policy. We'll be asking this particular Canadian economist how he thinks his work being cited by the White House has played out over the course of the last 7 days. And it's not just tariffs or grooming gangs. There's also another story too. The government is holding its entire growth agenda on getting Britain building again. But there's now a coalition of over a dozen environmental groups that are trying to stop them. And we will have on the programme tonight someone who's been dubbed as Britain's costliest NIMBY. He's taken every road project that has been proposed by the government to court by judicial review, costing £200 million.
Tom Harwood, a show worthy of its own Red Arrows fly past. Make sure you stay tuned in. State of the Nation is up next. I'll be back tomorrow 3 till 6, but now is your weather with Honor Chiswick.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It could be quite a foggy start for some of us tomorrow, particularly across the south, but this should clear quite readily through the morning, leaving another fine day, lots of warm sunshine on offer, and it's all thanks to this area of high pressure. At times this has swung some lower cloud across eastern areas, but we're seeing a change in our wind direction to more northwesterly feeds. That means many areas are going to see a bright end to the week. As we head into this evening, some lingering cloud across East Anglian coasts. Coast of Kent may just drift its way southwards onwards, bringing some fog across southern coasts in particular. Also plenty of cloud moving into northern parts of Scotland. That might be thick enough to produce some drizzle across parts of Shetland. But for many, it's going to be a dry night, feeling fairly chilly, not quite as cold as recent nights. And it's likely we'll see some mist and fog patches across rural areas across the country as well. So to start the day tomorrow across Scotland, a fair amount of cloud, particularly across northern areas. Elsewhere across Scotland, higher base clouds, so it might just make the sunshine as it comes up turn a little bit hazy. Fairly clear across Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. Similar elsewhere across Wales, central and southern parts too. Perhaps a little bit chilly and, like I said, some mist and fog to start, particularly across southern counties. But it's clearing quite readily through the course of the morning, and that should leave a fine day on offer. Wall-to-wall sunshine for many of us, and feeling very warm in that sunshine too. The only exception is the very far north of Scotland. More cloud here, some drizzly outbreaks, particularly across Shetland and possibly Orkney later, and a bit breezier here too. But elsewhere, lighter winds, warm sunshine, highs likely reaching around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm afraid a change is on its way over the weekend. There will still be plenty of dry weather, some sunnier outbreaks, but it's likely we'll start to see more clouds start to push in from the southwest, and there's a chance we could see some showery outbreaks too. And similar across the very far northwest of the country, more cloud here and some showers. And on Sunday, these showers likely more widespread, and it's going to be feeling significantly cooler too. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening and welcome to State of the Nation with me, Tom Harwood, GB News' Deputy Political Editor. Coming up on the programme this evening, First, the government said no to a grooming gang inquiry. Then they said sort of. Then no again. Now, is it